Hello, I'm Kate Thomas, aka Catherine DeLong, aka Kathy Jalepis, and this is At Home Radio, a podcast about feeling at ease wherever we are, or in this case, whatever we're calling ourselves these days. My guest today is Bernie Silverman, aka Bernard Silverman, aka Bernie That's UN, as in French for the number one. I met Bernie in French class my freshman year at Ohio State. That was before it was called the Ohio State University, the olden days. Anyway, Bernie was the first Bernie in my life. Therefore, he's Bernie the First, or Bernie Bernie, do you remember much else from French class?
No, not really. I don't remember much of those days at all. I remember you. I remember the teacher, and I don't remember much of that class, but.
Well, I looked up because I didn't remember all of them. I got to, 1 through 7 and then hit the wall. But I looked it up and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I also remembered très bien.
I thought you meant from the class. I didn't know you meant French. I thought you meant memories of the class.
Oh gosh, no. I meant French. I don't remember too much French.
What I remember about that class is that I had a fungus on my face.
Oh, this is good.
And I was very odd looking. And you were probably the only person I came in contact with that day that didn't stare at me just listen to me like I was a regular person as opposed to looking at me in horror or pointing at me or having everybody else come over to point at me or whatever. I remember that.
Oh, well, that's a nice memory.
Yeah, it is. It says a lot about you.
Bernie is from Northeast Ohio originally and has lived in Dallas for lots of years. How long have you been there, Bernie?
Oh, more than 20.
Wow. And you are Bernie, you're a marketing professional with an array of clients. And you also grew up watching Cleveland Indians baseball. So I thought it would be timely, now that a shortened Major League Baseball season opened last week, to take a stroll with you, Bernie, down memory lane, starting at the old stadium. It was called Municipal Stadium, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, and your dad used to take the family there. And that a lot of that was because your sisters received free tickets for getting good grades.
That's true, to straight A tickets. The newspapers used to give away.
Yeah, was that the press that did that? The old Cleveland
Press? The press, and then the Plain Dealer, I think, did it before they closed or did whatever they did.
And were you ever a recipient of the straight A tickets?
No. It pays to know people. It pays to be related to people.
Right. It sure does. It absolutely does. So anyway, what are your memories of the old Municipal Stadium?
Well, the problem with it was hilarious because it seated like 87,000 or something like that. And for football games, you get, even for lousy teams, you get really full stadiums. It was amazing how loyal the Browns fans were. But for the Indians, you get like 5,000 people. And at the end of the season, you get your own hot dog vendor and that sort of thing. And one of the things I remember, this was not real long ago, but Herb Score was announcing the game. I was driving through Cleveland listening to the game, and the game ended, and Herb Score said something like, well, the Indians lost 11-1 to the Yankees today, but on better news, the Barbers Marching Band will be playing at Gate 34. I was thinking, but that shows you what he's probably sitting there going, I got hit in the eye with that famous story of Herb Score getting hit in the eye with a baseball. I got hit in the eye with a ball, and now I'm reduced to talking about the Barbers and Bourbon Marching Band.
Gosh. Well, I hear that the Indians are good this year, really good, and they just swept a doubleheader against the White Sox. And this one server, we actually went out for the first time in months, and we sat outside in this restaurant outside on Main Street in Hudson, and we were having dinner there with Bernie, and me, and the server, who's a kind of really laid back surfer kind of dude, even though he's in Northeast Ohio and there's not a lot of surfing to be had. And he was talking about the Indians and talking about how good they are this year. And there was a little bit of consternation in his voice, because he said, wouldn't you know it, this might be the year they go all the way and nobody can go see them.
That's a funny line, actually.
It is a funny line. You could use that if you want. Credit Bob.
Well, they're arguing about, on ESPN, they're arguing baseball and football like their regular seasons. And then the Florida Marlins, I don't know, it was 19 players or something came down.
I know.
With the virus, and it's like they're acting like it's just going to be normal sports, because I guess you have to act that way. Otherwise, at ESPN, I guess you wouldn't have a job.
Yes.
Because there'd be nothing to talk about, and it's just a very odd thing. What I remember, one of the things that actually happened is that I was razzing. I won't even say who the player was. I may have told you this, but I was razzing the first baseman. I was with the youth group from Akron, and we were up there, and the players could hear you, because there, be three people in the stands. They could just hear you, and the player turned around and gave me an obscene gesture.
And you were how old at the time?
I was maybe 13 or 14.
Okay.
So I'll clean this up. But I said, hey, I stood up. I said, hey, I'm young and impressionable. You shouldn't be doing stuff like that to me. Just like he looked at me. I mean, when you get, but you're cool. When you're 13 years old and a professional athlete gives you the finger, that's like a really cool thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it's something you could see, and the stadium, it was so large, and there were restrooms. I always thought as a kid that you get bored or something, you go walking around the stadium, and then they find you dead 2 years later, because the stadium was so big. I don't know how often they cleaned the restrooms. They were at the top deck, but it was a huge stadium, and it was, and they did, the 1948, when they won the World Series, they got, in 1954, when they almost won the World Series, they got, full, capacity crowds, during most of the year. So it's a lot of people, 87,000 or whatever for baseball is a big crowd.
Yeah, definitely. Did you ever get over to Jacobs Field?
No.
Now Progressive Field, but I remember going when the Indians were really, really hot. Was that the 90s?
Yeah, it was the 90s. That's right.
And of course, that was a much smaller stadium, but it's a cool stadium, and that was really packed. I always liked going on a hot day and drinking beer and eating peanuts. Sort of the highlight for me.
Well, my dad grew up in the Depression in Cleveland and went for days without eating. And no matter how angry he was, if we went to a baseball game or a football game, I could eat as many hot dogs as I wanted. If I wanted 10, he would never turn me down for food. Because he'd gone through that period where he didn't have enough money for food.
Yeah.
But his problem was he was obsessed with not paying for parking at football or baseball games. It was just an obsession with him. He'd give somebody money on the street. So it wasn't the money.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea that we shouldn't have to pay for where we put our cars. I guess I have no idea where he came up with that theory. So we would park in the summer, like a quarter mile or more away from the stadium, and we'd be walking through Cleveland, and store alarms would be going off, like people were being robbed. We'd be walking through to get our car. And I don't even know how my dad even remembered where the car was. But it was, when he got his hip replaced, when he was older, I said, if you hadn't been so cheap about paying for cars, you'd still have your hip. You didn't know what to say, like looking at me.
He appreciated that.
Oh, yeah. Well, he also did when he had his hip replaced. He called me to say, I'm getting my hip replaced. And he was always giving me well-meaning but misguided advice. So he said, I'm getting my hip replaced. And I said, well, whatever you do, make sure they replace it with a hip. You don't want an elbow or, a knee put in there. He's like looking at me. So.
Yeah, for sure. You grew up reading about not only watching the Indians but reading about them, like the Chuck Heaton at the old Cleveland Press.
Yeah, that's how I learned to read was Chuck Heaton and Russell Schneider, and Hal Lebovitz was another one, and they covered baseball, they covered softball because softball is really big, like 60 years ago. This is when I was smaller, before I was around, but they covered sports in Cleveland, and that sort of thing. And they were very good writers. And, I learned to read. The Plain Dealer and the library in Cleveland had old baseball biographies. They just didn't have money to buy new ones. And so I knew more about Jackie Robinson or even people, Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, players like that than I did about, later players. Mm-hmm. I thought that's an interesting way to learn, to get to learn how to read. It was just pick topics. Could have been food. I mean, it could have been anything, but you just pick topics you like.
And they were colorful players too. A lot of them. Certainly, Babe Ruth was one of them.
Babe Ruth was. Ty Cobb. I think I told you Ray Chapman was the only player to have ever died in a game. He was hit by a line or hit by a pitched ball. And he was an Indians player. It was in 1920, one of the years they won the World Series. And the pitcher who hit him, Ty Cobb, said, "I'm going to just put the word out that he was going to kill the pitcher because he was friends with the player that had gotten killed."
Yeah.
And they had to go around and track down Ty Cobb so he didn't kill the pitcher. They were pretty. That was during the time of the Black Sox scandal, and there were a lot of payoffs and gambling and that sort of thing.
A little more freewheeling than now.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I like the one. I don't know if the Yogi Berra joke. That you,
well, it's not really Joe. He said that. I mean, he said Joe Graggiola got very famous and rich by just writing down what Yogi Berra said. And he'd said it. I mean, Yogi Berra was laughing at it. He didn't say it like, "Listen to me, I'm trying to be funny." He would just say it.
So, what the one about him being summoned to his high school principal's office?
Yeah, and he said the principal said, "Mr. Berra, do you know anything?" And Yogi Berra said, "Know anything? I don't even suspect anything."
Which I think is so cute. I love that one.
Oh, yeah. There are several. I can't remember all of them. I should have looked some of them up. But I just think, the Dizzy Dean was famous. He played for St. Louis, and he played with his brother Daffy Dean. So there were two brothers, and he said something. I've used this line before. He said, "It ain't bragging if you can back it up." And it's a pretty good line.
It is a great line.
Yeah, if you're confident. Every time I use that, I said Dizzy Dean later got a Rhodes Scholarship where he studied linguistics.
So you have a Bob Feller story. I just wanted to mention I have a signed copy of Bob Feller's Little Black Book of Baseball Wisdom. And it is just a darling little book about.
How did you get it?
It was a gift. I have some signed books, and I just like signed books. It's my only collection, and it is definitely a collection, but it's not one that's worth anything.
It's worth it to you.
So. Really, most of the time get, the price that it was paid, much less that it's, was signed. But I like them anyway. It's not like I collect it for the value of them. And this is a wonderful little book. And he's got all these, different reflections in there. And he was known supposedly as both a baseball player, Hall of Famer, of course, and a philosopher. So I just really liked him. And I like the book and I like what his wisdom is and everything. But you also came into possession of something very valuable that he signed, much more so probably than my book.
Well, I think one reason Bob Feller was popular in Cleveland or in Ohio is he was from an Iowa farm, and I think he used to practice by throwing against the side of a barn when he was 14 or 15, and he was, by the time he was 16 and 17, he was playing in the major leagues. So my dad used to give me autographs of people that I had no idea who they were. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and he would just get me like Fats Domino. I like Fats Domino, but not when I was 7 or 8.
Right.
And so he got me a Bob Feller, signed Bob Feller baseball. And he said, you need to write Mr. Feller a thank you note. So I said, "Dear Mr. Feller, thanks for the baseball, even though I can't play catch with it because you wrote all over it." I showed the letter to my dad, and he said, "You can't send Mr. Feller a letter like that. You have to, make it, thank him for it." So I redid it, redid the letter, and then when Bob Feller died, the Plain Dealer was looking for funny stories, and I sent that story, and then they published it.
Yeah, which is so cool. When was that?
I don't remember how many years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, I was just curious. I just think that's wonderful. I just love that. But I bet you would have. You didn't get a response, right?
No, I didn't get a response.
But you would have had you sent the original letter. I really think so.
Well, when I was in college at Ohio State, we sat around and we thought, we don't want to work some regular job at a 7-Eleven for the summer. So what we want to do is we want to be lifeguards at the Playboy Mansion pool. So we all sat around our dorm room at Ohio State coming up with a letter to Hugh Hefner. And so we're all sitting around and somebody goes, "All right, dear Hugh." Now this is me. I'm like 19 years old. Somebody writes, "Dear Hugh." I go, "We can't call him Hugh. We're not friends with him. We're 19-year-old schmoes from Ohio State. Dear Mr. Hefner." So we wrote, "Dear Mr. Hefner," this very sincere letter about why we were worried about the Playboy playmates, that, we didn't want any of them to drown in the grotto pool, the pool grotto and that sort of thing. And we got a letter back from a vice president of Playboy. And what was funny was it was a very professional letter, and it wasn't a patronizing letter. He could have just said, "You people, you're just college students," or whatever. He said, "Boys, you're not the first young men to think of, offering your services to do this." And it was a very, very nice letter, and I wish I'd kept a copy of it.
Well, that is
said a lot about them, because we were just 19-year-old idiots or whatever, and it was just very nice to send it back and not be, patronizing.
Right. So what did you all end up doing that summer to work?
We didn't do that. My dad got me a job at a place in Akron where it was a loading and unloading trucks.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was working there one day, and this guy said, we're in the back of a truck, and we're unloading the truck. And he just turns to me and says, this is in the morning, he said, "I've killed 35 people."
Okay.
I said, "Excuse me?" He goes, "I've killed 35 people. I said, "Well, Butch, I don't have a lot of dates at this point in my life, and I have a date tonight, and I can't make it if I'm dead. So why don't we skip killing me for a few days, and, we'll come back to it." I've killed 35. And he looked, I've killed 35. Nice to know.
Wow. Yeah. That would, that stops.
My dad got me jobs. I knew other people who got like really good jobs, you got in an office. My dad thought that he wanted me to learn what work was, which wasn't bad. So, he just got me a variety of these jobs in Akron.
Yeah. So Bernie, you're brilliant. I always say, you are, you're really a good writer. You're funny. You are really good at math.
You never told my mom that. That would have helped.
Well, sorry. And, you've got all these things going on. And how did you get into marketing?
I was working. I got a master's in journalism, and then I was doing survey research, and I was looking for a job. And a woman I know who had been in journalism school with me said, "I know a company in Columbus that's looking for a marketing person, business development person." And so I went over there, and I got hired. And what's interesting is, because I've taught marketing since then, I told this story because it's made an impression on me. I was working at this company. They had 12 people in the company. They really didn't have a specialty, but we sent out like snail mail at the time because it was before emails, and we sent out faxes. And I got a response from Bristol Myers Squibb in New York, corporate office.
Uh-huh.
And they called me and they said, "We'd like to have you make a presentation to our company." And my boss, who had been a professor at Ohio State, said, "Well, you can go," but I meant they called us. "We'll never get business. Just go and humor the person." She was nice enough to have called me. So I go there and I do a presentation, and she shows me her office is right next to the chairman of the board in the entire worldwide company. He was gone. And she gave me a tour of his office, and it was one of these offices that had it was a library with a ladder, and you can go get books and everything. It was really cool.
Cool. That's like something from a movie.
Yeah. And I come back to the office and she says, "Let me tell you something. We're going to give your company the business." So I called my boss up later, and he said, she was trying to be nice to you because you came all the way from Columbus. And then what happened was we started getting business from all these divisions of Bristol Myers Squibb around the country. And months later, I called her and I said, this is after I knew we were getting money and that we were being paid and everything. I didn't want to interrupt that stream. And I called her and I said, "I have to ask you this. Why did you choose our company?" And she said, "We had all these people came in with Wharton degrees and Harvard Business School degrees and everything, and you were the only one who came in and asked us what we needed."
Wow.
And I thought, and that sounds trivial, except that was worth millions of dollars. And I've kept that in mind when I've had meetings, because I've had meetings with, Bridgestone Firestone and a lot of GE and 3M and all these companies. And I always keep that in mind, that it doesn't matter what I think is important. It matters what the customer or client thinks is important. And then once they tell you that, then you can figure out how to address what they need.
That is
It sounds basic. Cool. It sounds basic, but I've been at meetings where people just say, I'm really smart. It doesn't matter how smart you are. Can you do what they need? So.
Right. I love that. So if anybody is interested in contacting your business, what's the name of it?
Well, I call it Silverman and Associates, but I have an email and all that. I work with other people. I partner with other people on projects as well.
Okay.
So really? I specialize in small business. So if somebody, I'm working for a laundry in Austin. There's 4 locations. I help them with their website and their marketing and their blogs. And one of the things I try to do, if I can, is use humor, because I think humor can get you a lot of free attention for very little money that you normally wouldn't get with just a straight traditional blog or ad or, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And you do a lot of things on, I should say, humorous things on Twitter, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I get several million impressions a month on Twitter.
Yeah. Which is really something. So what's the Twitter? I mean, how can people find you?
It's at Don Quixote. So it's at DonKeehotey. DonKeehotey.
I'm sorry, K-E-E. What is it?
Well, now you're going to get me confused. It's DonKeehotey. So it's clearly a takeoff on Don Quixote.
Quixote. That's cute. Okay, excellent. Well, do you want to give out your business email address or not?
Sure. You can see, if you get on my Twitter thing, I have a photo of downtown Akron. I don't think anybody knows that, but
okay,
that's what's there. It's Bernie, Bernie, Bernie.Silverman, just like it sounds, silverman@gmail.com.
Oh, that's your email address. I have that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but anybody listening wouldn't necessarily have that. So Bernie.Silverman@gmail.com and at Don Quixote, KEEHOTEY, Twitter.
Yeah, feel free to. I pontificate. I'm fairly. I do cover a lot of politics, but I'm fairly even-handed, and I've used the line for both parties, politicians. I say that so and so's teaching a Sunday school class on the 7 Commandments. So it's politicians being what politicians being what they are.
Right. That's funny. All right. Well, anything else, Bernie, that you'd like to say?
Oh, I wish everybody well in northeastern Ohio, and I wish the Indians well, and I hope. I'm not sure when my Ohio State Buckeyes are going to come back and play football.
Oh, I know. How do you distance yourself when you're playing, when you're trying, you also need to tackle other people. So I don't know.
That's what it's funny that after I had a master's degree from there, I got a job cleaning the stadium, and I was talking to Archie Griffin about something, and I said, I want you to know that every time you scored a touchdown, they'd throw 10 tons of confetti up, and I had to clean it up the next day. I just wanted you to know that.
And I'm sure he apologized to you, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I told my dad, I said, you start it was C deck, so it's one big C, and I said you start at one end of C deck and you shovel and you shovel and you shovel, and then you see something shiny and you reach over and there's a nickel and it all seems worthwhile. My dad said, that's pathetic. It was pretty funny.
Well, I think that's very optimistic.
Well, we found an entire unopened case of Chivas Regal after the Michigan game.
Whoa!
And my dad said, "Did you report it to your superiors?" I said, "Yeah, after we drank it." Yeah, I'm 19. Yeah, I'm gonna, or whatever I was. Yeah, I'm really gonna. There'd be after the Michigan game, you'd find like motorcycles. I mean, you'd find like TVs, just people, stoves in the stadium. I mean, it's just people, obviously drank too much or whatever, and pretty wild.
And they just forget things. Did you say not stove?
Yeah, stove. STOVE.
Why would somebody have a stove?
Cooking.
Yeah, I know, but we're talking about in the stadium. Oh, you mean like the vendors?
No, they had them stove. I'm not sure how they had it underneath. They had them in stoves. Like people just left stoves.
Huh. Well, that's weird. Well, wow. There's all kinds of things that you can find. Any more nickels besides the one time?
No, but I think I told you when we were at an Indians game, we went down and we took I don't know if it was 10 or 20 kids. We were all kids, and we went down and we took the bus. I was living in Cleveland Heights, and so I went down Cedar Road, and there was pretty straightforward shot to the stadium. And we went down and we came all the way back and we're just looking around and we were missing a kid. So we took the bus all the way back down there and found the kid, and he was just standing there waiting for us, I guess.
Oh my goodness.
We had nowhere to go. He was just standing there waiting for us to come back.
Well, luckily
that would have been a bad day if you come back without a kid. That would have been a really bad time at the stadium.
Absolutely. And on that note, thank you, Bernie Silverman, for being on At Home Radio. This is Kate Thomas. Go try.
At Home Radio. Creator and presenter, Kate Thomas. Music and video produced by Jonathan, the producer.